Hello, and welcome back to the Small Business Sweet Spot. I'm Barb Davids, your trusted resource for fluff-free and actionable information around SEO and content marketing so you can increase your website traffic and sales. And what you're about to hear this week is an episode that I did with Josh Hall on his podcast called Web Design Business. We went over the SEO quick wins, but sort of relabeled it to quickest, since there's no real quick way to do SEO, generally speaking. So this is what you are going to hear as a replay of that episode. Enjoy.
All right. Well, Barb, it's so good to have you on this side of the podcast. I was just on your podcast recently. I don't know when both of ours are going to go out, but I'm excited to chat with you specifically about SEO because you're like I told you when I was on your show, you have a unique perspective, I think, on web design because you, from what I can tell, you have a focus on the SEO side of things. I actually want to start with this question, which is, I've seen a lot of people put so much stock in social media and other avenues now where I feel like there's less of an emphasis on SEO. To that end, do you think there's more opportunity for people to get better rankings and get more from SEO?
I think so. It has changed a lot. I don't think there are as many websites out there, but I also think that there's a lot of people pushing up websites and not even considering the SEO at all. And with AI coming out and the AI overviews, I feel like people are freaking out about how to do their websites. Like, how do you get into the AI overviews? But it still stands at the core of it. Trying to get your website found still stands. There's a core foundation of creating content that's going to show up for the people who are searching for your solution. So is it easier? Probably actually not. It's probably only easier in that if you start thinking about it now, as opposed to people who are only using and thinking about social media, you'll be ahead of them. So that would maybe be the difference.
So it's just a little more complex, would you say, with just the different ways that Google in particular is displaying SEO results now?
Yeah, I think the results are definitely different, and depending on the query that's happening. So depending on your industry, well, web design, depending on if it's informational or transactional or whatnot, then it might come up differently or look differently. But I lost my train of thought.
Well, it's interesting because as much as I feel like SEO is getting complex, I feel like, honestly, I feel like there's almost less competition now in a weird way. You would think with AI that there may be more competition, but I almost feel like there's less good organic content strictly for SEO because so many people are focused on social media.
Well, that, and also it's hard to be unique. I feel like that might be why it feels like that too, because when you go searching for stuff, it feels like there's all the same stuff out there. Like there's not a lot of uniqueness in the content, but it's because what's showing is that's all that's showing. There's probably still some unique stuff out there, but the idea of creating content that has a unique perspective or shows your personality, I think, is what will stand out more because everybody's trying to get in the top 10. And then everybody tries to copy the top 10 to think that they can get into the top 10 that way. But that's not really the right approach. I mean, you look at the top 10 to see what's happening, or the first page to see kind of maybe what Google likes, but still you want to create something different and something unique and something that fits your brand. So I think that's maybe why it might feel like that.
So speaking of ripoffs, you talked about looking at the top 10 and looking what's working. I recently did a video for Circle, which is the community platform I use. And it is a YouTube video and a blog post, and it's 10 awesome features of Circle. I did that in February of this year, 2024. And just recently, I just Googled to see where that was coming up, and it's ranking really well now. If you happen to search Circle SEO or Circle SO or Circle community platform, it's starting to pull up usually in the #1 spot. But what's interesting is because of that, now there is a copycatter who has the exact same title as I did on YouTube, very similar thumbnail, and coincidentally, out of the 10 tips that I recommend, 8 out of 10 are the exact ones that I did. So they are literally looking, there are these scammer channels and bloggers that are, I see you shaking your head. I'm sure you've seen this game. They look at the top 10, like you mentioned, and then they try to I don't even understand why they would copycat it, because of course mine's going to show up. Mine's the OG, but
Hmm.
I don't know. All that to say, like, that's what I've seen is these copycatters try to look at what's working. And I don't know if there's any successful, you know, slimy SEOers
Yeah.
who get success out of that. It doesn't make sense to me why someone would take that approach.
Yeah, well, definitely. I think that it's a short term thought process. I think it's a short term mentality or mindset to that as well. I think that if somebody is looking to do it that way, they're not in it for the long haul. They're just in it to hopefully get likes. They're in it to get page views or whatever, clicks to their website, but it's not going to be a long term solution. So, and yeah, I just think that's one of those things you have to think about with the long term in mind and not worry so much about if they're copying you, but it's Google sees that too. You know, they see that there's somebody copying and they're not going to just allow everybody to copy or bring up the same things over and over and over again. Although I would say there was a lot of hoopla in the SEO industry about like Reddit showing up, and that's not really helpful because I mean, it is in certain terms, but it was showing up excessively. And I think that Google sees these things over time and they try to make adjustments when they see them. Now, they're getting a lot of bad rap right now, but they do try. I mean, that's their whole purpose is they want people to come to their website. They want people to come to Google because the ads, of course, right? But I think the copycatters are something that we just have to ignore.
It's funny. It's coincidental because we're talking about quick SEO wins here. And that is
Yeah.
exactly, that makes me feel better to hear your perspective on that. Cause I agree. It does seem like in the case of that video that ripped mine off, they were just pushing their affiliate link. But I
Yeah.
agree,
Yeah.
like maybe they'll get a little bump when it's a new piece of content, but very quickly, thank goodness. I actually have a lot of respect for the team at Google with what they're doing with their algorithms, because
Hmm.
they do seem to be cutting down on that stuff. And I think they probably knew they had to with AI, because you're getting so much duplicated and similar content. As you just mentioned on the outset of this, the original stuff, the personal stuff, the like goofy, quirky, real content that's actually human is what is, I think, is
Hmm.
going to continue to last so much longer than these janky things that pop up. So with this
Hmm.
idea of quick wins, you talked about the top 10 spots. I don't know if you saw recently, that I'm sure you did, being in the SEO land. Google did have continuous scroll for a while. What was it, like a
Hmm.
year or two? And then they just suddenly, actually more recently, I was like, oh my gosh, pages are back. I love
Hmm.
Google search pages. I love SERPs. We had a bit of a poll in Web Designer Pro this week about who likes the scroll and who likes the pages. So let me ask you, Barb, as we get into some quick wins for SEO, are you team pages or team scroll for the Google search?
I am team pages 100%. And here's why. One, as a consumer, I would sit there and scroll and I was like, well, when can I stop? I can't ever stop because it just kept going. Like I want to see all the results. And then as an SEO, I get more, and maybe they didn't really change it. I think they still did it in Google Search Console where you can see where you rank, but it's a much easier way to track. So if you had continuous scroll, I don't know if they Google Search Console is really weird because it doesn't tell you either when you're in ranking 0, like above the
Mm.
organic, but I didn't know if the actual numbers were true when it came to continuous scroll.
Yeah, from what I
So,
saw, and we had a lot of discussions about this in Pro, is it was a lot of like you would look at your rank total, so it might say like you're in spot
mhm,
40.
yeah.
Whereas the thing when that happened, when the scroll feature came out, the big thing was that clients could not say I want to be on the first page of Google anymore because the pages were gone.
Yeah,
But I
right.
agree. I'm team pages as well, especially with this idea of quick wins. Because if you can show your clients, there's something about telling your clients that, hey, you've gone from page 5 to page 2 versus you've gone
Mhm.
from spot 100 to spot 50. Like that's not really a big
Yeah,
deal for a client, but that's I
yeah,
agree. That's kind of why I'm excited that pages are back.
yeah. I'm all for it. I don't Yeah, I'd rather not have something that continually makes me stay there, although maybe it was good for them with ads because they threw the ads in every once in a while,
That's
so.
true. If a client were to ask you how long would it take to see SEO results, what would you
Mhm,
say? I want to set the foundation here for quick wins. What would you say to that?
mhm,
Or what do you
mhm.
say to that?
I tell them that they should be prepared for maybe 6 months to a year, generally speaking. However, there are things that sometimes can happen where we can see results in maybe 2 weeks, even a week. It will vary based off of where they're sitting now and what needs to be done with their website. And that's basically the thing. I mean, there are no quick wins. There are, I would like to call them quick. What are the quickest wins? Maybe not quick wins, but what are the quickest out of SEO wins to go through?
What are some of the commonalities that you've seen for those who have got fairly quick results? Let's say even if it's in less than 3 months, what were some of
Mhm.
those things that were common between those quickest wins?
I think the biggest ones were blog refreshes, frankly. There's a lot of outdated content on a lot of websites, and if we can refresh them at the time when you set them up, you put them out there and you think you're never going to touch them again. But in reality, you actually do need to touch them again because they get outdated and they get stale. And Google can see that and they like fresh content. And if it's when it's sitting out there, there are other people creating new stuff all the time. So Google's going to favor probably the newer content because it's newer. So if you refresh your content, then you might be able to rank faster. And there's a lot of things that you can, it's not just like changing a page title or putting on one image. It's actually doing it intentionally and going through and seeing if you can add more content to it. Is there a different angle that you might have or a different perspective? It's definitely the copy and the images, of course, but is there a way to even change the layout or maybe mix things around with the idea of how you're talking about it? A long time ago, or like it's changing a little bit, even like in podcasting, when we start out, we don't start with the introduction. People are creating blog posts or have created them in the past with this whole freaking backstory of like why something needs to be done, when in actuality the answer was like halfway down or at the end. And so people would have to scroll through. And I think now it's changing a little bit to say, okay, I'm not going to give you the backstory. People are thinking more about who's going to read the blog post and being more intentional with what they're putting in the blog post. So refreshing it in that perspective, some of the older ones, those have done well.
I noticed that too. I was a blogger for Elegant Themes for a couple years, and one thing in their author handbook, I think I can share this publicly. They said in the first paragraph, you want to share exactly what you're going to talk about and the result that you're going to get with this blog post, without having to
Mm-hmm.
find that lower in the page. And Google is like, if you can answer a question pretty quickly in that first paragraph, Google is both
Mm-hmm.
AI overviews and just the featured snippets. Those are what's pulling up often. I found that
Mm-hmm.
one of my tutorials is the difference between the Divi builder and the Divi theme. And that started getting featured on Google searches just because I had said, hey, the difference is this in the first paragraph. A
Mm-hmm.
question on these refreshes. I love that you brought this up because I have a lot of questions on this. So we'll have a little
Okay.
Barb coaching time. If I change the title, would that not have some SEO implications, either good or bad? I would think like if I'm going to change the title and I'm going to change content and do new images, should I just post a new blog post and have these be similar? Are they going to conflict with each other? I guess I'm wondering where the line is between revamping or refreshing a blog post and then just doing a new
Mm-hmm.
one.
Great question. So I'm going to use the it depends again because it will vary based off of the content or the topic that you're talking about. I always say refresh versus creating a new one unless you have a completely different angle. Because when you create a new one, you have to start from scratch basically. You have to retell Google to come look at this page and figure out if it likes it and figure out if it wants to rank it. Whereas your existing one already has some like credibility with Google. So if you just refresh it, it has a better chance at ranking highly or re-ranking than it does a new one in the general sense. Now, everything I ever say, I just put a splat with it, like a
Mhm.
asterisk disclaimer, because there's always like exceptions to the rule. But the idea is to refresh it. And if you just change the headline or the title, there's two different ones. So you have the headline when you land on the page, which you can change, but you also have the page title, which is the technical back end piece of it. Typically, it's the same as the headline when you don't do anything or change it, but that page title that you put behind it is what shows up in search results. And so if you can just refresh that, that's actually a tactic. So you can just change your page title and see if it will garner more clicks from Google. Because, like, for example, if you're sitting on one tactic is this kind of goes with that. If you're sitting on second page, so position 11 through 20, if you change just your page title, you can just sit and wait on that for a couple weeks, or probably don't even have to wait a couple weeks, but I like to use 2 weeks as a general rule. Then just wait and see if that makes any difference in how many people click through, because that page title and that description is kind of like, I relate it to like a window display or shopping display when you're like walking down the street and you see the stores. Like, you use that page title and description to want to encourage people to step into your website, take a look around, that kind of thing. So that would be one tactic to refreshing. But I'm going to quick put another splat on this one. Don't change your URL, because again, it's kind of like that new piece. If you change your URL, it's basically a new page, even though you think it's the same thing and you're just changing it on the back end. It's a new page to Google, and it makes it work a little bit harder to try and get to rank.
Great advice. I'm so glad you really went into the difference between a page title and the heading, like the H1. For years, I kind of thought those were basically the same thing. But when I started using WordPress, and then I use Yoast, any SEO platform, that's where you would adjust the page title. Is that right? Or can you adjust the page title natively with WordPress without a plugin?
I have not seen it. You know what? I haven't looked that hard at it. I've always used a plugin for some reason.
I don't, as of now,
I think you have to have a plugin.
Yeah, as of now, I think you would need to use Rank Math or SEO Yoast or something, or Yoast SEO, to be able to adjust the page title. But for everyone's reference, that is a gold strategy that is low risk and low pressure, because as you just mentioned, you're not actually changing the page. Google's just going to see a different version of that. But you're right, the URL, I mean, that's the biggie. So those are the big three then, right? There's the heading, the H1, like what this article is. There's the page title that you can adjust with Yoast or an SEO plugin. And then there's the URL. All of those things work really nicely together, but the URL is like, that's the one you want to retain without blowing things up.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. What about metadata? Like the little description inside there. I feel like that's kind of the fourth. That's like the other important piece that can be overlooked. Obviously, Google will find something in the content, but from my understanding is you can almost force the issue by having a really good description in Yoast under the page title. Is that how you view that as well? Or I guess what's the value and how much stock do you put in the meta description?
I tend to put a lot of stock into it, even though Google tends to overwrite it. And I still don't understand why they decide they want to do that. But if you don't put in a description, it will pull like the first pieces of content. And depending on your platform or various things, it could pull in like the navigation. And that just looks gross on the search results page. So you always want to put something there. The other thing to keep in mind is the call to action. So like when you're looking at the first page of search results, I always take a look at like what everybody's doing, because most of the time people don't put something there. And when you're reading it, you want to encourage people to want to click through. So you want to give them a reason and like compel them to want to click through. And you can't put emojis, you can't put exclamations, you can't do all capital letters. It has to be actually good copy and like a call to action. It can't be like click here or read more, even though that's kind of our default. I think the idea is to be thinking about what they're going to get from the page and then use that. So see the list now, or I'm not even good. This is why I'm not a copywriter, but you put some good copy there for people to
where would that copy actually go? Would that go in the metadata, like in SEO Yoast, for example, or would that be in the first paragraph of the page and then you get to the blog post? Where would that go, that call to action?
That one would go into the, for the meta description for the search results page, would go into the plugin piece. I mean, you're still going to probably use that call to action in some form or fashion in the first paragraph, or like as they're reading and writing, because you're introducing what they're going to get from the content, but that would go into the meta description.
Okay. So quick wins and sound advice for more like low risk revamping of a blog post to keep it fresh. The heading, the page title. I would imagine you'd probably start with the page title, right? The page title and metadata, and then heading as kind of the plan B, or would you do both potentially?
I usually do both at the same time, because I'm in that mind frame and that frame set. Like I'm thinking about it. And so they kind of go hand in hand when you're sitting there looking at the page results, because you want to think about the keyword that you're targeting, right? The topic that you're targeting, and the keyword should be in the page title and the headline. It doesn't necessarily need to be in the description. Here's the funny thing. Even though Google doesn't necessarily use that as a way to match up the query with the page, like behaviorally, people are reading it. And so you're going to want that thing that they searched for in there so that it resonates with them when they're reading it. So when you're talking about a title, the description could just piggyback off the title.
Okay.
So
That makes sense. You had mentioned the display of Google and how frustrating it is that we can't exactly control that. I get the question all the time, how can I tell Google what pages to display when somebody Googles me? Is there an answer for that, or is it just based off of hierarchy in the menu, prominence of pages? Like for a while, my login page was what you would see when you search joshhall.co. I'm like, I don't want my login page to show up under those, the little 5
yeah.
pages. So any tips on quick wins for that, on how your website displays and what pages display?
You're talking about the site links. So when you have your main page, then you have the little
Yeah,
things
yeah, you'd
underneath,
see like
right?
4 or 5 pages under that. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely not. I have no answer for you on that one. You're just stuck with it.
God, there's
um,
gotta be a
so,
way.
well, so you can de-index them,
Mhm.
right? But Google still, there's no way. They used to be able to say, like, don't use this page in there, but I still haven't found a way, unless it's new and I just haven't seen it, but I haven't found a way to be able to tell Google to use a page or not use a page. They're doing it based off of, yeah, what's already in your website and maybe what people are clicking. So if you have the word login at the top, maybe just leave it at the bottom. I mean, you can try different things, but I think it's a popularity contest and Google just pulls what they want.
Great point. Good reminder too to just de-index pages. In that case, I don't think
Mm-hmm.
I do have that one de-index. So that's on my to-do list after
Oh,
this.
that might be
That might
why
be why.
then.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I will do. That's a quick win. Just de-index the
Mm-hmm.
pages you don't want to show up. Now, do you
Yep.
use other platforms than WordPress, Barb, or are you WordPress specific?
No, yeah, I'm pretty much just WordPress. If anybody comes to me with another one, I will work with them, but it is with the catch that, hey, we might not be able to do some things, like we might not be able to, um, well, sometimes I guess everybody has a back end, like even Squarespace, they have like a whole SEO section, but
That
there isn't like, yeah,
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
that's
That
okay.
was what I was wondering, is like Squarespace, Webflow, if they had
Hmm.
a built-in basically SEO plugin. That way you could adjust the page title, de-index versus, the heading and what we would normally see in WordPress.
Yeah, so Shopify actually does not have a way to de-index that is user friendly that I found the last time I was in there. That's the catch. Is sometimes what happens is usually you have an option to put in a page title and a page description for most platforms, but then what happens is like Shopify, it will show it no matter what. So if you don't want it to show in Google search results, you actually have to just decommission the page altogether, unless you want to go into the back end code, which nobody wants to go into that. So
Yes, absolutely. Any other common quick wins that you talked about? The blog refresh, some great insight and tips on that. What are some other common quick wins that somebody might get for whether it's a blog, or we know that podcast and YouTube are very intricate with SEO now? Yeah. Any other quick wins?
mhm. I think the other one to take a look at is the internal links. Those are often forgotten. So, a lot of the time when we write a blog post, at the bottom, we'll say contact us, and then we'll link to the contact us page. What that essentially does is say to Google, the contact us page is very important. Please make sure to do something with this page. Like, this is the most important page. When in actuality, our service pages or our packages pages are the most important, or even the homepage, really, frankly. So when you do your linking throughout your website, try to think about how that works with your most important pages, where you want people to go. So if you're writing a blog post and if you want somebody to contact you at the end, like that's the most logical choice, then just put the form down there. Don't send them over to the contact page. Just put the form down there, make it super easy, no having to click somewhere else. And then that's probably like one of the biggest things I think I've seen lately.
So it's almost like, I always view SEO and websites as like a tree where you want to continue to have your prominent branches be the ones that Google knows about. So in the case of a contact form or a contact page, that's interesting, because I would think that you'd actually want to continue to go to the contact page if it is in fact the one. But that's a good solid point, that if there is a resource or something where the contact page isn't as important, that should probably have the focus, especially on blog posts and services pages, and something where you can kind of keep people redirecting and looping into your website. Is that kind
Yeah.
of the idea?
Yeah. Because most of the time when people are coming to your website, most of the time it's really top of funnel. People are just getting to know about you. You're bringing them in to learn about your services, your packages, that kind of thing. So they may not want to contact you right away. It might be that you want to send them to another blog post that gives some more information, or maybe it goes to your packages page or your services page or whatever the download might be. So that, I think, is something that people tend to do a little bit blindly. They're just like, contact me, contact me, contact me.
Good point. I think it's always a good reminder too, when you're creating a blog post or any piece of content or a sales page, to think about, to actually think about, like, well, this is a great piece of content, but now what?
hmm
That question right there, now what, is always a
hmm
good place to go back to when you think about the customer journey and what they should do after this blog post. It's so easy to overlook, though. I mean, I get that fully. I think as creators and designers, we're often focused on a piece of content or a sales page, that we often forget about a nice footer, call to action section, or a bottom blog post call to action, or the now what. Um,
hmm
I, Tactically, do you know how AI overviews is pulling some of this stuff? Is it just kind of regurgitating the top featured snippets and stuff like that? Do you, because I don't know too much about how AI overviews is working. I really just haven't looked
hmm
into it too deeply currently.
Yes, that's all it is. I think people want to make it a lot more than it really is right now, but AI has to pull from somewhere. Like, it doesn't just come up with stuff. And so it's looking at existing websites. And what better existing websites than the ones that rank on first and second page, right? So they're just picking those. And I think that it still goes back to that core foundation. If you're building your website with the idea of what is somebody typing in and searching for, and are you creating content to match that search, that's what is being looked at. So is it using algorithms? Yes, in a different way, but still with the core foundation of it's looking for what's currently ranking, because it has to pull from somewhere. So that is just really all it is. I'm trying to make this a longer solution than it is, but it really isn't that different than what's happening right now.
That's good to know. I was curious where that was pulling from.
Yeah.
With this idea of quickest wins, I'm trying to not say quick wins, because I agree. Quick is relative. It's the quicker wins. I've
Right,
always,
right.
and I teach this in my SEO course. I have a foundational SEO course for web designers. And what I teach is that there's basically two ways to get quicker results, which is focus on more like long tail keywords, long phrases that have less competition, or if you're a service provider, local SEO. And I have a member in my community, Sam, who is like the local SEO king, because in less than a year, he has like completely taken over his region. And he got a lot of quicker SEO wins because he focused on location pages and location specific web design services. Any
hmm
tips, advice on that? If somebody wants to either, or do you agree? Do you agree that there's like the long tail route if it's national or just online focused, or local SEO if it's service based? What's your take on that and your thoughts on that?
I have two things for you. So one, I would say with the local one could even work with national, because the local one, you can still build out some things like where you're based. And so that would help. But also from the local side, like you have Google Business Profile, which is a free marketing tool. And you don't have to put your address on there. But even if you use that, some of my clients do get a lot of, I don't remember the exact number, but there was a significant amount of traffic coming from that particular listing, and they aren't showing their address, they don't have a brick and mortar or anything like that. So I think that's one of the quick wins too that people forget about, that's out there. The Google listing and the location pages is definitely a good one. I think that is probably a good quickest win, because if you haven't been using it, all of a sudden you do, Google loves Google, you might see some really great stuff from that. And that one's super easy to set
Mhm.
up. You just put in, the biggest thing is putting your description, your name, and then publishing like once a week to it. That's the only thing you have to do really for that one, because there's not much else that you have control over when it comes to if you're going to show up from the Google business profile. So that's an easy, quickest win. And then the other one, the long tail, just to kind of talk about that a little bit too. I think a lot of times people think long tail is like so many words or a bunch of words in a phrase, but really just it means that there is lower search volume, but it's more specific phrases. So I'll use just shoes. Like shoes is just a regular one. If you use women's red tennis shoes, that's considered a long tail phrase. There's going to be a lot less searches than shoes, and it's going to be more specific. And I had a client once where we just started up a website and we were concerned about how long it takes to get SEO to go. And it was a very competitive industry. So we focused on things that had lower search volume and that were less competitive and wrote to those topics. And there were a couple that really took off really fast. So I think you're not going to know which ones necessarily, but I think those could be an option for a quickest win as well.
That's a really good distinction, or at least a better way to phrase it, especially for clients, instead of saying long tail, because they're going to be like, what does that mean? Like the average business owner is going to be like, what? But if you say specific, that's gold. Great tip. Especially any product, service. Like if I do web design Columbus, Ohio, where I'm from, very competitive. But if I do WordPress web designer Columbus or WordPress web designer, the surrounding areas, that's where I'm going to get the quickest wins as a web designer. Is what I teach. It's a great reminder. I like the term specific because that's what it is. And as you probably know, like Google is looking for specificity and originality. I feel like more than anything now, especially.
Yeah. And you could even go so far as for the web designers in the group is like WordPress web designer for cake businesses in Columbus, Ohio, because you're still going to be able to find enough difference from WordPress designer to WordPress designer for cake businesses in Columbus, Ohio. You're going to be able to speak directly to that business and it will still be different. So it won't be like duplicated content or like regurgitated from another blog post.
How long is too long for long tail? Because I feel like what you just said is awesome. But I think anything after that, Google will probably be like, all right, that's like a paragraph. So how far is, how much is too much for like a long phrase or a long tail keyword?
I would say if you can't speak to it to somebody or you can't have it in a conversation, probably stay away from it. I don't think that there's any hard, fast rule. It just is if it makes sense and just go from that. I don't think that there's a hard rule at all for that.
Isn't it funny how SEO strategies in particular, as much as we overthink them, it's like, what would you say in real life? That's what's going to translate online.
Yeah, exactly.
I love that rule. That way it's not like web designer Josh Hall, WordPress web designer in Columbus, Ohio, focusing on small and medium-sized businesses, speed and optimization, focused on conversion-based design. Like too much.
I say try it, Josh. Just try it. Let's see what happens.
Hey, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe that's the real gold.
You're right.
Great tips though already. Like these are, and the cool thing about I think what we're covering so far, and I hope what everyone's seeing is that these quicker tips are actually, it's not rocket science. It's not actually hard stuff to do. It's just a little intentionality, little strategy, and a little research and competition research on what you're looking at doing. Like I mentioned Sam, who's going to be on the podcast soon after this. One thing that he'll talk about is how he did look at competition and did the exact strategy that you just talked about, Barb, which is he looked at the areas in his region that were not really that competitive, not big towns. But if you can get on the top of a bunch of smaller towns just with a location page or a Google map pack, and optimize your Google listing, you can really show some authority and prominence on Google. And I just want to harp back to the opportunity there is now, because while other people are focused on social media and other places, which is fine, I do feel like there is this gap and this resurgence of opportunity for SEOers.
I feel like too that people are seeing it, that years ago it was kind of like, oh my gosh, I don't know how it works. It's a black hole. Like I'm so confused. Why would I do it? But it really is a long-term solution to a business marketing plan. when you do SEO and you do content marketing, it sits out there for a long time. You might have to refresh it and like distribute it and redistribute it. But it's so much easier, I feel like, if you're creating blog posts, for example, or even long service pages, sales pages, to create your social posts from that. So the repurposing value of it is so high.
Great point. It's like the it's like the 101 of blogging too, and keeping everything on your website. That's the hub, that's your home. And then
Mm-hmm.
you repurpose and take the little bits from there. Good reminder too with the location pages, that for anyone who has location pages right now, to consider adjusting that, revamping it, not the URL like we talked about, but the page title and the heading, to see if that can help freshen those up a little bit too.
Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts real quick on bullet lists and numbers? Because I've seen Google, at least in the past, has appreciated like steps. If you can give somebody 5 steps to do this in the first paragraph and then expand on that, Google seemed to like that. Is that still the case? Do you
Mm-hmm.
know? Do you have any pulse on that?
I think so. Again, it's going to go back to the query. If it answers a question, it's definitely much easier. And especially if you format it in a certain way. So if you're just using like a dash and some words, then that doesn't necessarily signal to Google as formal as a bullet list or a numbered list as you use it. Like when you're inside of WordPress, for example, they have that toolbar at the top, and you can actually format it like in a Word doc. You hit the bullet point or you hit the numbered list, and that will format it with tags around the content in a more Google friendly way, basically.
And going back to this, the opportunity for Google searches, I've really started to think more recently about how, in particular, like ChatGPT is going to play a role in this moving forward, because I've seen a lot of people starting to use ChatGPT, myself included, as almost like the first step now instead of a Google search. Like I'd rather just search on ChatGPT with like 10, whether it's tips or advice, or whether it's resources, like what are the 10 top WordPress blogs or WordPress YouTube channels or whatever it is. The important thing about that from an SEO perspective is these AI tools are, to my knowledge, are not scraping social media as much. They're scraping
Mm-hmm.
Google. So if you can get better rankings on Google, over the next 5 to 10 years, as AI tools start filtering down through service providers, because right now it's mostly us who know how to use ChatGPT. The average like
Mm-hmm.
salon owner isn't probably going to use ChatGPT, but in
Right.
5 years, that might change dramatically. So if you can capitalize on it now, I feel like, and then in 5 years, if somebody uses ChatGPT to say, what are the top 5, hair salons in Columbus, that's going
Mm-hmm.
to make a pretty big impact. And I've already seen this play out with people finding me who have mentioned they looked at ChatGPT for like WordPress resources or business resources for web design. Any thoughts on that?
Mm-hmm.
Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I think so because, well, and essentially the Google search results is ChatGPT almost. It's just formatted in a different way. Like it's still picking up from the top ranking usually, or just things that are already indexed and ranked in Google. But the thing that you could probably use it for, just threw into my head what I did for a client one time, because I wanted to see the top providers of that industry in the city. So I typed it into ChatGPT, and I also did it over on Bing, which is now Gemini, just to see what the difference was. And I wanted to know who came up for this particular phrase. And my client did not come up. And I thought, well, what the crap? Like, why is my client not coming up? So then I used that to my advantage. And I said, well, why do you think this particular website is not coming up? And it brought to light some very interesting things based off of the actual phrase that I typed in and what was showing on the website. That it was very copy related. And it was interesting to see what I thought was relevant on the page. The AI tool interpreted it differently. So I think that's where we can use it to our advantages to find out like why would my website not be
So did
showing
you
up?
actually prompt and ask it why? Is that what you did? Did you actually ask it
Mm-hmm.
why is it not showing up? Which that's like a free SEO coach in a way.
It is. Yeah, and I've tried different things like that because like when I type in certain things and I'm looking to just for different, like I go all over. I do rabbit holes just so I can get more information. And if I type in like a list of something or give me 10 reasons, I don't like how ChatGPT provides it for me, and I don't have the time to sit and like placate it and tell me longer. And it gives me like too short of answers. And I would like to know these reasons. Why did somebody pick these reasons? Like, so I always like to still go over to Google to figure it out because I get the perspective and the mindset of the person writing it. But when you do like SEO stuff and thinking like, okay, well, what's mine different? It gives it to you, I feel like, more logically and a little bit more subjectively. Like my feelings aren't there when I'm asking it to evaluate the website. And it's not always going to be correct because there are hard times when I've gotten answers that I know it's not correct. And there are times when it did phantom produce words. It's like, oh, this website contains these words. And I went searching for it forever and I could not find it for the life of me. So you have to kind of check it
Yeah,
still.
I do love your approach though of like if you see something that's not ranking and you think it should, just simply prompting it and asking, yeah, what could we do better, or
Mm-hmm.
why didn't this do that? I didn't really think about using it as a an SEO coach. Uh, that's pretty
Mm-hmm.
cool. Any other glaring commonalities between quickest wins that we haven't covered yet? We haven't even talked about video. I don't know what with YouTube. I
Mm,
mean, gosh, YouTube and Google. If you're not utilizing it
yeah.
together, think about it because I know that's a biggie. Any others? Or
Yeah, and I would say test that one too. Still, I had someone put on a YouTube and embedded it on their website, and that it tanked. It
really?
just tanked, yes. And it was the strangest thing because it was like a very high ranking, very high volume term. It was in the flower industry. And then they took off the YouTube and it was fine. So, why that happened, I still have not been able to pinpoint, but I definitely would say test it out.
Fascinating. I wonder if there's a
Hmm.
difference between linking to a video that's on YouTube versus embedding. Wonder if that
That's a great experiment.
here, let's
Hmm.
do it live. Hold on a sec. Here, we'll get ChatGPT coaching here. For hold on a sec. I'm gonna say for best SEO results, should I link?
I bet it's going to come back with it
Oh, here
depends.
we go. Let's see. Should I link or embed a YouTube video on a blog? Let's see. So basically what I want to get at is we're getting really specific here. Do we want to link to a video that is a video piece of a blog, or and gosh, this is huge for somebody like me who is doing often a blog post along with a video, or should we
Hmm.
embed the video? Yeah, it's kind of crap. This is
Although I would say for usability, it's better to embed because it's right there. They don't have to click off the page. That's the whole kicker.
I'm shocked that that would not work well for you.
Well, it was just that one case.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
for best ChatGPT says for best SEO results, embedding a YouTube video on your blog is generally more beneficial than linking to it because of engagement. Videos
Hmm.
embedded can increase user engagement on your site, user experience. That way they don't need to go off. Rich snippets. So embedded videos can sometimes be recognized by search engines for rich snippets. That's interesting. If it's associated with a post, I guess that would also potentially help the scammers and the copycatters, like we talked earlier, because if you have your original blog post with your original video and it's on your site,
Hmm.
the author, Google would know like, okay, this is legit. This isn't somebody who stole, Barb's video and put it on their
Yeah.
site. Um,
Well, like with your testimonials that you do with the video testimonials, that's huge because that's so original and so unique, and you can't copycat that in terms of like AI or reproduce it. I mean, technically you can, right? But it it looks
yeah.
real, and it's something that most businesses don't do.
Backlinks and shares and keyword relevance are the other benefits of embedding it. So here we go. Overall, I'd venture to say
Mm,
embed the video unless, like you said, you just have an
yeah.
odd situation where it tanks. One detailed question on that. How do you feel about a YouTube video being titled the exact same thing as the blog? Or should a blog post be a little bit different than the YouTube video?
Inside of the blog post, you're
Yeah, so
asking?
like for example, I mentioned my circle video that I did that's ranking pretty
Hmm.
well. It's currently 10 awesome features of Circle, the best online community platform. I have a blog post that is the exact same title as the video. Good or bad? I don't
If you, yeah, if you're going to use the title inside of the blog post above your video, I would take the opportunity to use the copy in a different
Mm,
way. Because you have that extra space. You don't necessarily need to duplicate it again. I think you could say, again, I'm not a copywriter, so I'm not going to be able to come up with something off cuff, but you could utilize that space to introduce the video, but maybe use a variation of a keyword that you're trying to target with that particular content.
gotcha. And again, going back to your great recommendation earlier, which is just to play around with the page title and the heading, like that is
Hmm.
something that can always be tweaked and changed. Same thing
Yeah.
with YouTube. Like this is why a lot of YouTubers will switch out thumbnails and switch out titles. The URL of the
Hmm.
video doesn't change because you can't replace a video in YouTube, but those are things that can be tweaked and manipulated. But I am always a little hesitant when something's ranking well to make any changes. So this is
Yeah.
almost something I probably should have asked earlier on, but I wonder like when is it time to change a URL or change a title, or is your motto if it's working, don't mess with it. Don't fix it if it's not broken.
Absolutely. That is it. And it's hard because you always want to make sure that you're trying to stay on top. So what do you do to make sure to stay on top? And I think this is another one of those comfortability factors. So if you see something that goes from position 1 to position 2, that's not necessarily cause for alarm unless it sticks around there for 3 months or something. That's a relative number. It depends on what you're going to be comfortable with. And then even then, number 2 is not bad because there are some theories out there like, why would I want to be number 1? Because everybody's going to skip over number 1 and click number 2. So it's going to be a little bit about like what you can stomach as a business owner and for your business of what feels good to be like, okay, this is just too long. Now I need to do something.
We've talked a lot about organic. How do you feel about ads? I mean, technically, the quickest SEO win would be an ad because you're going to get up in the
Mm-hmm.
sponsored spot depending on how competitive it is. But as I've seen a lot, when you stop an ad, it doesn't mean it's going to do anything organically for you. Your organic rankings could tank after that. Yeah, how far are you into the ads side of SEO?
I like ads. I don't think that there's a correlate. I think there's a ghostly correlation out there that people have that they say if you do ads then your organic does better. I have not been able to find that happening. What I do like about doing paid ads, whether it be Google ads, social ads, anything, or even direct to, these direct magazines in your industry type of ads, I think the diversification is what's key. So if you're just starting out and you just can't wait, I think ads are a good way to go. And sometimes I even have a client that is their only method because it happens to be that their side business is not something that they can spend a lot of time on. So this is their only method of marketing that they choose to do. But I like to think about it as diversifying your marketing portfolio basically. And taking that, and if you decide to try it out, great, but always be able to track everything so that you can make informed decisions. Because if you're getting and you're spending 50% of your marketing budget on Google ads and they come back and you're not converting as high, then you're spending too much on it. So it's just about trying different things and then seeing what works and then making adjustments.
So what we've covered so far, just to kind of look at this as like a bullet list, like a recap, um, quickest wins, refreshing blog posts in the way of the page title, the heading, maybe even the metadata, not affecting the URL, especially if it's ranking. We talked, and content in there is obviously a biggie as well. Layout, call to action, that specific call to action or kind of what now after the blog post, huge easily overlooked piece. Video, obviously, with Google or with YouTube and Google being married together, that can be a huge component. I've always found YouTube ranks a lot faster than blog posts typically. Specific, long tail type key phrases and keywords, location based SEO, both pages and Google listings and the map pack. And was there one that we missed? Well, just ads as well. Ads could be a quick piece that could be a quick win. Obviously, it's not going to last, but it could be a
Mm-hmm.
nice addition to like you said, the marketing suite that you're doing. Is there anything
Mm-hmm.
else that after this call you're going to be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe we didn't talk about that? Is there anything else we've glanced over?
Well, of course there is going to be.
What would be the top one that we got to make sure before we head off here that we don't overlook?
I'll tell you as soon as you hit stop record.
Yeah. send me
No, I
a
think that
loom. We'll add it in the edited version.
Right, right. No, I think that pretty much
Yeah.
covers it.
Cool. Well, this has been great, Barb. This is awesome too, because I do get this question a lot. Because a lot of people, I think what keeps people back from SEO or what holds them back is they're like, I just don't want to do something for 6 months to a year that's going to pay
Hmm.
off then. I want to do something now. I need clients now. But as
Hmm.
we've talked about, all of these strategies are something that they can actually work out pretty dang fast, depending on what it is. Yeah, I would recommend personally having like in-person networking and marketing strategies that are a little quicker ROI. But if you can back that up with these strategies, it can
Hmm.
compound pretty quickly. I've coached a lot of people who have done a blog and done things like this that may not pay off immediately or within a few weeks or a couple months, but by golly, all of a sudden, 3 to 6 months down the road, they're like, I'm swamped. I literally went from like
Hmm.
hurting for work to now I can't keep up with it because all of these marketing efforts compounded. So, um,
Right.
yeah, I don't know if you have anything to add to that, but that's certainly my push to be like, don't overlook SEO, especially nowadays.
Yes. Yes. I would agree very much.
You have a resource for us, Barb. Tell us about that. And yeah, tell us about where everyone should go after this to connect with you and to get some SEO help if they're interested.
All right. Yay. I do have some help. I feel like a lot of web designers and other small business owners, they're just not sure where to start. So I did create a PDF that people can download. It's totally free and it helps you get 1,000 more website visits. So I even have a little printable book that I'm hoping to get to send out to people at some point, sometime, but you can download for free. Just go to compassdigitalstrategies.com. There's a bunch of resources on there and happy to help if anybody has any
In that
questions.
PDF, we'll link this in the show notes, but as of now, that's compassdigitalstrategies.com/PDF. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Yep,
Got
that's
it.
right.
Cool, cool, cool. I'm actually signing up for it now. So excited to take a look at this.
All right.
And then you've got a podcast I just recorded before this. We
Mm-hmm.
recorded my chat with you on your podcast, which is called The Sweet Spot.
Mm-hmm.
Is that right? The Sweet Spot?
Small business
Small
sweet spot.
business sweet spot. Sweet. Ton of other
Mm-hmm.
resources. So awesome. And I have to say, Barb, I love your brand name. I've always thought that was cool, especially as an SEOer and somebody who's kind of a strategist in a way, like Compass
Mm-hmm.
Digital Strategies. Very cool because it's in the name.
Thank
Like you're
you.
kind of helping people get
Yeah.
found, literally get found.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. I
You don't
appreciate
even
that.
need any, creative copy. You can just say like, it's in the name. We get help you get you found. There you
That's
go. You
right.
can use,
We are your
yeah,
compass.
we are your compass. There. I want to see that on your
Yeah.
website. We have a
Yeah.
good title. All right, Barb, thank you so much for your time. Gold strategies, actionable stuff every one of us can implement. This has given me some things to think about tweaking and especially revamping some high performing blog posts that I think could be better. So I really appreciate it. And everyone go check out compassdigitalstrategies.com/PDF. Free guide, Barb's brain in a book. There it is.
Thanks, Josh, for having me.
Thanks,
Appreciate
Barb.
it. Thank you for sticking around. I hope you enjoyed the episode. If you're looking for SEO and content marketing help, you can find all kinds of information at compassdigitalstrategies.com. And if you like the episode, please tell a friend. Cheers.